death in Adventure Time is never treated as a simple ending. Unlike many fantasy worlds where death is final, or where an afterlife is explained in rigid religious terms, Ooh presents a vision of death that is both strange and deeply human. It is a state of passage, a continuation, and at times even an opportunity. The series asks its audience to reflect not only on what it means to live, but on what it means to stop living, and to keep existing in another form. From the earliest encounters with ghosts to the grand reveal of entire dead worlds, Adventure Time insists that the soul is real, tangible, and woven into the very fabric of the universe. Spirits linger. Worlds beyond our own are populated with the remnants of past lives. And death himself is not a distant abstraction, but a figure who can be bargained with, defied, or even befriended. The result is a mythology where mortality is acknowledged but never stripped of wonder. The simplest expression of this idea comes through ghosts. In Ooh, the dead often remain visible, bound to places or emotions. Ghosts can be playful, menacing, or sorrowful, but they always carry with them a trace of the life they once had. They remind the living that memory and unfinished business are powerful enough to resist oblivion. Rather than terrifying, Adventure Time's ghosts often reflect continuity. The dead are still with us, even if only in altered form, but ghosts are only the surface. The show expands its treatment of death by giving us an entire underworld governed by Death himself. This figure is not the Grim Reaper of folklore, cold and impersonal, but a strangely casual ruler with a skeletal face and a dry wit. Death in Ooh is approachable, even bureaucratic, a cosmic worker fulfilling his eternal job. His realm is vast, containing not only the souls of the departed, but also pathways to other dead worlds. Through death, Adventure Time communicates that the afterlife is structured, not chaotic, yet still infused with the absurdity and humour that defines Ooh itself. Crucially, death is not omnipotent. He can be challenged, manipulated, or even killed, though his death does not erase the concept of mortality. Instead, his destruction opens the door for new structures to emerge, with the dead worlds reorganizing themselves under different rulers. This idea is profound. Death is not an absolute monarch, but a function of the universe, one that can be reshaped, negotiated, or redistributed. The permanence lies not in the person of death, but in the inevitability of mortality itself. When we finally glimpse the 50th dead world, we see Adventure Time's most striking meditation on the afterlife. The dead worlds are not a single unified heaven or hell, but an entire hierarchy of realms, each one containing different qualities and destinies for souls. Some are mundane, some are terrifying, and some are tranquil. The 50th is presented as a place of ultimate rest, a paradise where the soul can finally be at peace. The fact that there are multiple dead worlds reflects the complexity of existence. No single afterlife can contain the diversity of lives lived in Ooh. Instead, there are many possibilities, many outcomes, and many ways of continuing after death. This vision is important because it suggests that the afterlife is not a punishment or a reward, but an extension of the same cosmic variety that defines life in Ooh. Just as the living world is filled with candy people, vampires, rainicorns, and humans, the dead also inhabit a pluralistic universe. Even after death, individuality and diversity are preserved. Souls retain identity, memory, and even choice. The afterlife is not a flattening of existence, but a continuation of difference. Jake's journey into the dead worlds reveals the most personal dimension of this mythology. When Jake passes, he does not vanish into nothingness, but enters the great structure of the afterlife, where he eventually reaches the 50th dead world. His journey is serene, even joyful, because it affirms that death is not to be feared, but embraced as part of the cosmic flow. Jake's acceptance reflects his entire character, laid back, trusting, and attuned to the rhythms of the universe. In him, we see how Adventure Time teaches us to face death not with terror, but with openness. Finn's encounters with death are more complicated. He travels to the underworld while still alive, bargains with death, and witnesses the fate of souls. For him, death is not distant, but immediate, something he must reckon with even in youth. These experiences do not harden him. Instead, they teach him empathy. Finn learns that life and death are not opposites, but partners in the same cycle. The dead continue in memory, in ghostly presence, and in the great order of the dead worlds. To live well, then, is to honour both the living and the dead. What makes Adventure Time's treatment of death so compelling is its refusal to make the afterlife entirely solemn. Death's sarcastic tone, the odd rules of the dead worlds, and the occasional absurdity of ghosts keep the subject from collapsing into pure tragedy. This balance reflects a deeper truth. Death is serious, but it is also part of the same whimsical, surreal universe as everything else. It is not an interruption of Oo's weirdness, but an extension of it. Thematically, this mirrors how humans process mortality. We do not experience death only as grief, but also through stories, humour, ritual, and memory. Adventure Time captures this blend perfectly. When characters face death, they may weep, but they also joke, argue, or treat it with casual acceptance. The show tells us that death is not separate from life's absurdities, it belongs within them. There is also an ethical dimension to this portrayal. Because the dead linger, because they can be reached or spoken to, the living are constantly reminded of responsibility. Actions have consequences that extend beyond the moment of death. Spirits may return to confront those who wronged them, or they may wait for closure from loved ones. The moral weight of relationships does not end with life. It carries forward, shaping both the living and the dead. This continuity reflects one of Adventure Time's central values, that everything we do matters, even beyond our own lifespans. The existence of multiple dead worlds also raises questions about destiny and justice. Do souls end up in one world or another based on their deeds? Is the afterlife a reflection of inner character, cosmic design, or simple randomness? The show avoids giving a single answer. Instead, it embraces ambiguity, leaving room for viewers to interpret. In this way, Adventure Time mirrors real human traditions, where different cultures imagine death and the afterlife in diverse, often conflicting ways. The ambiguity is itself the message. The mystery of death is part of its meaning. In Peppermint Butler's stories of necromancy and dark magic, we glimpse yet another perspective. For him, death is not only an ending, but a source of knowledge and power. His ability to interact with the dead, summon spirits, and navigate the underworld shows that the veil between life and death can be crossed by those who seek it. While sometimes unsettling, these practices remind us that the boundary between the living and the dead is porous in Oo. Death is not a locked door, but a threshold that can be crossed, though not without cost. This porousness is what makes Adventure Time's vision of the afterlife feel so rich. Characters can die, return, reincarnate, or linger as ghosts. Death is not the erasure of identity, but a transformation. Even those who pass into the higher dead worlds leave traces behind in memory, in family, or in the cosmic order itself. This reflects a profoundly hopeful vision. Nothing is truly lost. The universe of U preserves, reshapes, and reuses everything. Mortality is part of the cycle, not an end to it. Ultimately, the nature of death in Adventure Time reveals a philosophy that is both playful and profound. The afterlife is real, structured, and varied. Souls persist. Death is a character, not a faceless void, and he is part of the same absurd cosmic tapestry as everyone else. In this vision, mortality is not terrifying, but meaningful. To die is to change form, to pass into new realms, to continue the journey in a different way. For viewers, this vision offers comfort and reflection. Adventure Time does not deny the sadness of death, but it refuses to let it overwhelm the story. Instead, it situates death within a universe of love, humour, and possibility. By showing us ghosts, dead worlds, and the strange figure of death himself, the show invites us to see mortality not as an end, but as another adventure. In U, death is not silence. It is another story, another world, another chance to connect. That is the nature of death in Adventure Time, never final, always part of the great, colourful, and mysterious whole. If the dead worlds represent the grand design of the afterlife, then ghosts represent its everyday presence. They are the visible proof that death does not sever all ties between the living and the departed. In U, ghosts are not rare. They drift through landscapes, inhabit dungeons, linger in houses, and appear in unexpected places. Their existence is both eerie and strangely comforting. They remind us that the past is never fully gone, that memory and unfinished stories continue to shape the present. Adventure Time's ghosts embody the idea that death is porous. The boundary between life and death is not solid but permeable, and spirits slip through it often. This porousness makes U's world feel alive with history, haunted not in a frightening sense, but in a connective one. The dead are still with the living, not only as shadows of sorrow, but as participants in the ongoing story of U. At the most basic level, ghosts in U are manifestations of souls that have not moved on. Their translucent forms, often white or glowing, are instantly recognizable. Yet their personalities remain intact. They speak, remember, and interact with the living. This preservation of identity reflects the show's larger philosophy. The self does not vanish in death. Instead, it persists, sometimes stubbornly, sometimes with purpose. One of the most important aspects of ghosts in Adventure Time is their range of motivations. Some are playful, drifting without clear intent. Others are angry, bound to grudges or unresolved trauma. Still, others remain behind to protect or to communicate. This variety reflects the diversity of human responses to death. Not every soul departs peacefully. Some cling, some resist, and some simply wander. U honours all of these possibilities, showing that the afterlife is as complicated and individualised as life itself. Hauntings in Adventure Time often reveal the emotional residue of death. A ghost may be tied to the place where they died, or to the object that defined them, or to the person they loved. These connections anchor them, preventing the transition into the dead worlds. The living, in turn, must reckon with these presences. Sometimes they are frightened, sometimes annoyed, but often they are forced to confront the deeper meaning of why the spirit lingers. In this way, ghosts serve as a mirror for the living, reflecting back the unresolved business of life. Finn's interactions with ghosts are especially revealing. As a hero, he often finds himself in places where spirits dwell. His willingness to listen, to understand, and to offer closure, shows his growth not only as a warrior, but as a compassionate figure. For Finn, ghosts are not obstacles to be destroyed, but beings to be respected. This attitude reflects the show's larger theme, that understanding others, even those who no longer breathe, is essential to harmony. Jake, by contrast, treats ghosts with his characteristic nonchalance. To him, their presence is part of the universe's strangeness. He does not fear them, but accepts them as another facet of reality. This acceptance becomes important later in his own journey toward death, where he too will become part of the realm of spirits. His casual attitude is not disrespect, but recognition. In U, ghosts are part of the natural order. Not all ghosts are benign. Some are malevolent, driven by bitterness or hunger. These spirits reveal the darker side of clinging to the world of the living. They embody the danger of refusing to let go, of holding on to anger even after death. Such encounters remind the living of the importance of resolution, of finding peace before crossing the veil. Yet even in these darker portrayals, Adventure Time maintains empathy. The malevolent ghost is not evil by nature, but broken by circumstance. Behind their hostility lies a story of pain, and often that story can be healed. One of the most striking uses of ghosts in Adventure Time is their connection to history. Through spirits, U preserves the voices of the past. Characters long dead can still speak, still reveal knowledge, still share their perspective. This is not only a storytelling device, but a philosophical point. The past is not gone, it informs the present directly. Memory is not abstract, but embodied in ghostly presence. When Finn or other characters encounter these spirits, they are literally speaking to history. This treatment of ghosts also resonates with how communities process collective memory. In our world, the dead live on in stories, in traditions, in places that feel haunted by their presence. Adventure Time literalizes this by making ghosts visible. They are the embodiment of memory made flesh, the insistence that the past cannot be erased. In U, to encounter a ghost is to confront not only an individual, but the history they represent. The land of the dead itself is sometimes accessible through ghosts. They act as messengers or gatekeepers, linking the living world to the afterlife. In this role, they emphasize the thinness of the boundary between realms. A conversation with a ghost is, in a sense, a conversation with the afterlife itself. This liminality gives ghosts a sacred quality, even when they are mischievous. They are the threads that stitch life and death together. Marceline's interactions with ghosts offer another dimension. As a half-demon, half-vampire, she already straddles the line between life and death. Her ability to relate to spirits, to sense them, and even sing with them, shows her unique place in U's cosmology. Marceline herself is a reminder that death is not an absolute state, but part of a spectrum. Her music, often melancholic, channels the voices of the past, echoing the way ghosts themselves carry memory forward. Peppermint Butler's dealings with ghosts add yet another layer. As a master of dark arts, he calls upon spirits for knowledge and aid. His necromantic practices show that ghosts are not only passive, but can be summoned and directed. This blurs the line between respect and exploitation, raising ethical questions. Do spirits consent to such summons? Are they willing participants, or are they bound against their will? The show does not give easy answers, but it highlights the complexity of interacting with the dead. Even in the magical world of U, power over spirits comes with responsibility. The persistence of ghosts also raises the question of choice. Do spirits decide whether to linger, or are they trapped by circumstance? Adventure Time suggests both. Some ghosts stay because they want to, because they cannot leave behind the people they love. Others remain because of trauma, unable to release their ties. The implication is that death does not automatically free the soul. Moving on requires acceptance, resolution, and sometimes assistance from the living. In this way, the show reflects human rituals of mourning, which often involve helping the dead find peace. Jake's eventual death and passage into the dead worlds brings all of these themes together. Though he does not linger as a ghost, his journey shows what happens when a soul does find peace and moves on. By contrasting Jake's smooth passage with the restless existence of ghosts, the show suggests that the afterlife offers multiple paths. Some souls go forward, some remain, and some oscillate between worlds. None are erased. Each continues to exist in some form, reinforcing the show's hopeful vision of persistence beyond mortality. Another important theme is the way ghosts reveal the ongoing presence of love. Spirits often return because of relationships, unfinished promises, unspoken words, or bonds too strong to sever. These hauntings are not curses, but expressions of love's endurance. Even in death, affection and attachment remain powerful. For the living, encountering these spirits is a reminder that relationships are eternal, echoing beyond the grave. This idea resonates strongly in Adventure Time's closing philosophy. The show insists that love, memory, and connection cannot be undone by death. Ghosts are the literal embodiment of this truth. They stand as proof that what we share with others outlives us, that bonds are not broken by mortality. For viewers, this message is deeply comforting. It tells us that those we lose remain with us, not only in memory, but in presence. Finally, ghosts in Adventure Time embody the show's balance of humour and gravity. They may float through walls, make jokes, or behave absurdly, but they also express deep sorrow and longing. This duality prevents them from being reduced to horror tropes. Instead, they feel like real echoes of human lives, complex and multidimensional. By laughing with ghosts as well as grieving with them, Adventure Time reflects the full range of how we relate to death. In the end, the role of ghosts in Oo is to keep the dead close to the living. They are not gone, but transformed, still capable of teaching, warning, or loving. They reveal that death is not an exile, but a shift, and that memory is a form of presence. Through ghosts, the show gives us a vision of the afterlife that is personal, emotional, and profoundly human. They are the whisper that the past is still here, the touch that says we are never truly alone. Among all the beings who inhabit Oo, few carry as much weight as death himself. Unlike ghosts, who hover on the edges of the living world, or the dead worlds, which stretch into cosmic infinity, death is a singular presence, personal, tangible, and strangely mundane. He is not merely a metaphor, but a character with a voice, a face, and a personality. In a universe filled with candy people, talking animals, and cosmic entities, death fits seamlessly, reminding us that mortality is not just a concept, but an encounter. The first striking thing about death is how unassuming he island. Far from a terrifying or divine figure, he appears skeletal, gaunt, and almost casual. His mannerisms are laconic, his voice dry, and his outlook pragmatic. He does not dwell in ominous silence, but speaks directly, sometimes sarcastically, sometimes with indifference. In this sense, Adventure Time strips away much of the mystique that often surrounds the figure of death in myth. Here, he is a worker, a custodian of souls, a figure who simply does his job because someone must. This portrayal gives mortality a strange accessibility. By making death a character who can be spoken to, bargained with, or even outwitted, Adventure Time communicates that death is not wholly beyond comprehension. It is vast and inevitable, but it is also part of the same odd universe as everything else. The fact that Finn, Jake, or even Peppermint Butler can meet death face to face places mortality within the realm of relationship rather than abstraction. It is not a distant concept, but someone you could literally knock on the door of. Yet death is not trivialized. His power is undeniable. He rules the underworld, oversees the passage of souls, and commands authority across the dead worlds. Even when his casual tone suggests nonchalance, his presence carries weight. Characters respect him, not because he is frightening in the traditional sense, but because he is necessary. Without him, the structure of life and death in U would collapse. He is the pivot point of mortality, the keeper of balance between realms. One of the most intriguing aspects of death as a character is his fairness. He does not operate out of cruelty or malice. When living beings come before him, he listens. He may make deals, offer conditions, or even allow exceptions. This negotiability makes him unusual compared to traditional depictions of death as absolute. In U, mortality has room for conversation. Life can sometimes be extended, bargains can be struck, and the rules, though firm, are not without flexibility. Finn's interactions with death show this clearly. When Finn approaches him, he is not immediately struck down or cast away. Instead, death engages him, hears him out, and even allows him to act. This demonstrates that mortality in U, while certain, is not merciless. The figure of death reflects a universe where compassion and justice matter, even in the afterlife. Jake's encounters with death are equally telling. Jake treats him as he treats most things, with a blend of curiosity and relaxed acceptance. For Jake, death is not an enemy to fear, but another entity to relate to. This attitude resonates with his later acceptance of his own passing, showing how his worldview allows him to embrace mortality without dread. By interacting with death as a character rather than an abstract terror, Jake models the idea that death can be approached calmly. Peppermint Butler's dealings with death show a different dimension. As a necromancer, he does not fear death, but seeks to harness knowledge and power from him. This dynamic reveals that in U, even the ultimate boundary can be studied and manipulated. Death tolerates Peppermint Butler's interference up to a point, but he remains the authority. This balance reflects the tension between magic and mortality. While sorcerers may poke at the veil, death ensures that the cosmic order is never fully broken. The fact that death can himself die is one of Adventure Time's boldest choices. When he is killed, the universe does not collapse, but it does change. Other figures step in to fill the role, and the structure of the dead worlds shifts. This is a profound statement about mortality itself. Even the personification of death is subject to impermanence. No being, however powerful, is exempt from the cycle. In this way, Adventure Time avoids portraying death as an ultimate tyrant. Instead, it is a function of the universe, larger than any one figure, continuing even when its custodian falls. This idea aligns with the show's broader philosophy. Nothing is permanent, not even the powers we assume to be eternal. Everything can change, everything can evolve, and everything, even death, participates in the cycle of life, transformation, and renewal. The death of death is not a contradiction, but an affirmation of this cycle. It underscores that the universe of U is dynamic, never static, always capable of surprising shifts. What makes Death so compelling as a character is his balance of humour and gravity. He may roll his eyes, speak in clipped tones, or display impatience with those who waste his time, but beneath this humour lies immense responsibility. He holds countless souls in his realm, manages the flow between life and afterlife, and ensures the order of existence. By giving him a personality, the show makes him relatable, but by grounding him in duty, it preserves his weight. This duality allows viewers to approach mortality in a new way. Death is not only a tragedy, but also an administrator, a character with quirks and frustrations. In laughing with Death, the show teaches us to soften our fear of mortality. In respecting his role, it teaches us to honour the seriousness of what he represents. This blend captures the essence of Adventure Time, the heaviest themes presented through the lightest tones, the darkest truths wrapped in whimsy. Another dimension of Death's character is his impartiality. Unlike villains such as the Lich, who seek destruction, Death does not delight in endings. He does not kill for sport or ambition. He simply performs his role because it is necessary. This neutrality is important because it positions Death not as evil, but as natural. Mortality in Oo is not a punishment, but part of the cosmic order. By personifying Death in this way, the show strips it of moral judgment and frames it as an inevitability that is neither cruel nor kind. It's simply island. This neutrality also allows Adventure Time to separate Death from fear. The Lich represents annihilation, entropy, and malice. Death represents passage, order, and continuity. By distinguishing between these forces, the show offers a nuanced understanding of mortality. To die is not to be destroyed, but to transition. The horror lies not in death itself, but in forces like the Lich that seek to erase existence entirely. Death, by contrast, ensures that existence continues in new forms. The setting in which Death appears also contributes to his character. His realm is dark but not terrifying, strange but not alien. It feels like an office as much as a kingdom, a place where the business of mortality is conducted. This imagery reinforces the idea of Death as structured and organized. Souls do not vanish into chaos, but are guided, processed, and placed within the larger framework of the dead worlds. By presenting his domain in this way, Adventure Time gives the afterlife a sense of stability. Perhaps the most important aspect of Death as a character is what he reveals about the living. Each interaction with him forces characters to confront their own relationship with mortality. For Finn, it is about responsibility and empathy. For Jake, it is about trust and acceptance. For Peppermint Butler, it is about the pursuit of knowledge and power. In each case, Death serves as a mirror reflecting back the deepest concerns and philosophies of those who encounter him. He is less a teacher than a catalyst, forcing others to reveal themselves. In the broader narrative, Death's existence also challenges viewers to rethink their own relationship with mortality. By giving Death a face, a voice, and even a sense of humour, the show invites us to see it as approachable. The inevitability of death is softened, not because it is denied, but because it is personified. In seeing characters argue with, laugh at, or reason with death, we are reminded that death is not a void, but an encounter. It is something we can think about, talk about, and ultimately come to terms with. In the end, death as a character embodies Adventure Time's entire philosophy of the afterlife. He is powerful, but not cruel, approachable, but not trivial, inevitable, but not final. He represents the structure that allows souls to continue, the order that prevents chaos, and the humour that lightens fear. By making him a character instead of an abstraction, the show transforms mortality from a shadow into a presence. For viewers, this is both comforting and profound. It tells us that death, while inescapable, is not alien. It is part of the same strange, whimsical universe as everything else. It is not an end to story, but another chapter, one managed by a skeletal custodian who is as tired, patient, and wry as any worker in U. In laughing with him, respecting him, and seeing him fall, we learn that death is not a terror beyond comprehension, but a fact woven into the fabric of existence, personal, familiar, and, in its own strange way, kind. When Adventure Time first hints at the existence of the afterlife, it seems simple enough. The dead go to the land of the dead, ruled over by death himself. But as the story deepens and the curtain is pulled back, we discover that U's cosmology is far more complex. The afterlife is not one place, not a singular heaven or hell, but a vast hierarchy of dead worlds, each one different, each one offering its own vision of what it means to exist beyond life. This revelation transforms our understanding of mortality in Adventure Time. Death is not a door that closes, but a staircase with countless landings, some higher, some lower, some still shrouded in mystery. The dead worlds are layered realms, each representing a different state of being after life. The sheer number, 50 in total, makes it clear that the afterlife cannot be reduced to simple categories of good and bad, reward and punishment. Instead, there are gradations, possibilities, and destinies. This reflects the show's broader philosophy. Life and death are not binary, but complex, diverse, and filled with shades of meaning. At the lower levels, the dead worlds can be frightening, bleak, or even oppressive. These are the realms that feel closer to the traditional notion of punishment. Souls who arrive here are often depicted as suffering or trapped, weighed down by their past choices or by the structure of the world itself. Yet, Adventure Time avoids moralizing too heavily. It does not declare these souls evil or damned. Instead, it suggests that the afterlife is a continuation of one's inner state, a reflection of what the soul carries. Those who are restless, bitter, or burdened may find themselves in realms that mirror those conditions. As one ascends, the dead worlds become more peaceful, more luminous, more harmonious. At the highest point sits the fabled 50th dead world, a place of ultimate rest and transcendence. It is serene, golden, and filled with calm, a realm where souls finally find release from the struggles of both life and lower afterlives. Jake's journey to the 50th makes this vision personal, showing us that for some, death is not a haunting or a prison, but a reward of peace. In this way, Adventure Time acknowledges the full spectrum. Death can be sorrow, confusion, or torment, but it can also be joy, resolution, and homecoming. The hierarchy of the dead worlds reveals something essential about the show's cosmology. U is not governed by a single moral law, but by a cosmic variety that mirrors the diversity of life itself. Just as the living world contains candy people, demons, vampires, humans, rainicorns, and countless other beings, the afterlife contains realms suited to every kind of soul. Mortality does not flatten individuality, it preserves and extends it. This is a profound statement. Who you are continues after you die, not in identical form, but in resonance. Your essence shapes where you go, and where you go reflects your essence. The structure of the dead worlds also raises questions about justice. Why are there so many? Who decides which soul belongs where? Death himself seems to act as custodian, but not as judge. His role is organizational, not moralistic. He ensures that the flow of souls continues, that each finds its place, but he does not weigh their worth in the sense of divine judgment. This lack of explicit judgment is important. It avoids framing death as a court of law and instead treats it as a process, a sorting, a continuation of cosmic order. The universe does not punish or reward, it reflects and arranges. The plurality of the dead worlds also adds to Adventure Time's sense of mystery. Even characters within the show, beings familiar with magic and cosmic forces, do not fully understand the hierarchy. They glimpse pieces, visit certain realms, or hear stories, but the full scope remains beyond comprehension. This mystery reinforces the idea that death, no matter how familiar, always retains an element of the unknown. Even in U, where the dead can be spoken to and the afterlife traversed, mortality is never fully mapped. There are always higher levels, always deeper mysteries, always more than can be known. Jake's ascension to the 50th dead world gives us the clearest picture of what lies at the top of this hierarchy. His acceptance of death, his trust in the cosmic order, and his openness to transformation allow him to rise through the realms. Unlike ghosts who linger or souls who remain trapped in lower dead worlds, Jake moves upward effortlessly. His journey reflects his personality, relaxed, trusting, and in harmony with the universe. The fact that he reaches the 50th shows that peace in death is possible, not through conquest or knowledge, but through acceptance. This stands in contrast to other depictions of the afterlife in the show. For those who cling, resist, or carry unresolved pain, the dead worlds may not offer the same serenity. Some souls appear restless, some bound, some still longing. This variety emphasizes that death is not a universal equalizer, but a continuation of the struggles and triumphs of life. Just as people live differently, they die differently, and they experience the afterlife differently. The hierarchy also reflects Adventure Time's refusal to simplify its cosmology. Many stories, especially those aimed at younger audiences, present the afterlife in clear terms: heaven above, hell below. Adventure Time resists this reduction. It suggests that life and death are far more complex, that 50 dead worlds exist because 50 are needed to contain the diversity of existence. The afterlife is not a reward or punishment system, but a reflection of reality's richness. This vision also invites philosophical reflection. If there are 50 dead worlds, does that mean there are 50 ways to understand death? 50 truths about what it means to be gone? The answer seems to be yes. Mortality is not singular, but multifaceted, and the show embraces that multiplicity. By presenting many dead worlds, Adventure Time acknowledges the plurality of cultural beliefs about the afterlife. Different traditions imagine different fates, and U contains them all, layered together into a vast cosmological structure. The dead worlds also highlight the tension between permanence and impermanence. Some souls remain in a given world indefinitely, while others move on. Jake's rise shows that transition is possible, that death itself is dynamic. Souls may ascend or change, just as living beings grow and evolve. The afterlife, in this sense, is not static, but alive with movement. It is not an end point, but a new realm of possibility. Death's own demise adds another layer of complexity. When he is killed, the hierarchy does not vanish, but it reorganizes. Other beings take control, and the dead worlds remain. This demonstrates that the structure is larger than any individual custodian. The afterlife is not dependent on one figure, but is woven into the very fabric of the universe. This permanence contrasts with the impermanence of its ruler, reminding us again that death is both inevitable and adaptable. Another striking element is the accessibility of the dead worlds. Unlike many mythologies, where the afterlife is unreachable by the living, Adventure Time allows characters to cross into these realms. Finn, Jake, Peppermint Butler, and others make the journey, whether through magic, ritual, or accident. This accessibility blurs the line between life and death, reinforcing the idea that the boundary is thin. Yet the hierarchy remains daunting. The higher dead worlds are not easily reached, and their mysteries are rarely revealed. The fact that the 50th is shown at all feels like a gift, a glimpse into something usually beyond comprehension. The dead worlds also serve as a counterpoint to the living world of Oo. Where Oo is colourful, chaotic, and full of noise, the higher dead worlds are serene, golden, and calm. They are the silence after the song, the stillness after the storm. This contrast emphasizes what death offers, not erasure, but release. At the same time, the lower dead worlds mirror the chaos of Oo, filled with conflict, confusion, or strangeness. The hierarchy contains all possibilities, from torment to peace, just as life does. In the end, the dead worlds reveal Adventure Time's deepest philosophy about death. It is not one thing, but many. Mortality contains horror, humour, peace, and mystery. It is a structure vast enough to hold every soul, every story, every possibility. By presenting 50 dead worlds, the show tells us that the afterlife is as diverse as life itself, that no single definition can contain it. For viewers, this vision is both unsettling and comforting. It unsettles because it denies simple answers. Death remains mysterious, varied, and unpredictable. But it comforts because it insists on continuity. Death is not nothingness, but a passage into one of many realms. There is always more beyond, always another world, always another chapter. Adventure Time invites us to imagine that when we die, we do not vanish, but join a vast cosmic order, one filled with realms as strange and varied as the lives we lived. Whether we ascend like Jake, linger like ghosts, or find ourselves in lower worlds of confusion, we remain part of the great story. That is the meaning of the dead worlds and their hierarchy. That mortality is not an end, but a spectrum, an infinite ladder of existence stretching beyond imagination. Few characters in Adventure Time embody ease, humour, and acceptance, quite like Jake the dog. From the very beginning, Jake is portrayed as a figure of calm in contrast to Finn's urgency, a voice of reassurance when the world seems chaotic. His stretchy powers, his love of laziness, and his deep devotion to his family make him one of the most grounded figures in Oo. And yet, when it comes to death, Jake's story is anything but ordinary. His journey through the dead worlds reveals not only the richness of Oo's cosmology, but also the wisdom he carries in facing mortality. Jake's passing is unlike that of most characters. Where others resist, linger, or return as ghosts, Jake steps into death with serenity. For him, the afterlife is not an enemy, but a continuation of the same rhythms he has always trusted. He does not fight it or fear it. Instead, he drifts into it with curiosity and acceptance. This attitude is consistent with his personality throughout the series. Jake has always been a believer in going with the flow, in trusting that things will work out, in not pushing too hard against the tide of life. His death, then, is not a break from his character, but its culmination. The dead worlds greet him, and he moves through them with ease. Unlike souls burdened by trauma or unresolved business, Jake is free. His acceptance allows him to ascend, to rise through the hierarchy of the afterlife without struggle. Where others might remain trapped or confused, he simply drifts upward, carried by his own openness. The image of Jake ascending to the 50th dead world, golden and serene, is one of the most profound in Adventure Time. It shows death not as terror, but as peace, not as loss, but as release. What makes Jake's journey remarkable is how personal it feels. For a character so beloved, his death could have been tragic. Instead, it is gentle, reflective, even inspiring. Adventure Time refuses to reduce Jake's passing to sorrow. Instead, it presents it as a lesson in how to approach mortality. Jake teaches us that death, like life, is best faced with love, trust, and calm. This is not to say his death is meaningless, far from it. His departure carries weight for Finn, for his children, and for the entire narrative of Ooo, but the meaning lies not in despair, but in the wisdom of letting go. Jake's journey also shows us the unique philosophy of the dead worlds. While ghosts linger and some souls struggle, the afterlife is not hostile to those who are ready. Jake's ascent suggests that the dead worlds are responsive to the soul's state of being. Acceptance brings release, resistance brings entrapment. This aligns with Adventure Time's larger themes. Growth comes not from force, but from openness, from allowing change rather than fighting it. For Finn, Jake's death is transformative. Finn has always relied on Jake as a brother, mentor, and partner. Losing him is devastating, but Jake's serene acceptance becomes a model for Finn. Instead of filling Finn with despair, it gives him strength. Finn learns from Jake that death is not to be feared, that the bonds of love do not vanish, and that mortality is part of the great order of the universe. Jake's journey becomes part of Finn's growth into maturity, teaching him how to carry love forward even after loss. Jake's relationship with his children also takes on new meaning in light of his death. His offspring, unique blends of dog and rainicorn, represent the continuation of his life. Even as Jake departs, his essence remains in them. This continuity reinforces the show's vision that death does not erase, but transforms. Jake lives on not only in memory, but in the beings he helped bring into the world. His ascent to the 50th dead world is not abandonment, but transition, leaving behind a legacy that continues in both family and friends. What is particularly moving about Jake's journey is how it embodies Adventure Time's balance of humour and depth. Even in death, Jake does not lose his laid-back charm. His calmness, his jokes, his relaxed acceptance remain intact. This prevents his death from becoming purely tragic. Instead, it reflects the show's philosophy that even the heaviest themes can be carried lightly. Jake does not collapse under the weight of mortality. He stretches with it, embraces it, and finds joy within it. The golden imagery of the 50th dead world, where Jake finally rests, is also important. It contrasts sharply with the darker, more chaotic realms below. For Jake, the afterlife is not punishment, but reward, not loss, but fulfillment. His journey suggests that peace is attainable, that death can be a homecoming rather than an exile. This vision is comforting not only to the characters within the story, but to viewers as well. It tells us that the afterlife need not be feared, that it can be a place of beauty and calm. Jake's story also raises profound questions about destiny. Was his ascent inevitable, given his personality and choices, or did he earn it through his way of life? The show does not give a definitive answer, but the implication is that Jake's trust, love, and openness shaped his fate. The dead worlds respond to who he is. reflecting his inner harmony with the cosmos. This suggests that death in U is not arbitrary. It is shaped by the life lived, by the character carried into it. Jake's peaceful afterlife is a reflection of his peaceful soul. Another key element is the way Jake's death resonates across U. His departure is not just personal, but cosmic. Jake has always been connected not only to Finn and his family, but to the larger order of U. His acceptance of death becomes part of that order, reinforcing the theme that life and death are woven together. Jake does not resist the universe, he joins it fully. In doing so, he becomes part of its continuity, part of the cycle that keeps U alive. Jake's journey also contrasts with the darker forces that threaten U, such as the Lich. Where the Lich seeks annihilation, Jake embodies continuation. Where the Lich represents fear, Jake represents trust. This contrast highlights the difference between death as natural passage and death as destruction. Jake shows us that mortality is not the enemy. It is entropy and erasure, the domain of the Lich, that should be feared. Death, as embodied in Jake's journey, is natural, meaningful, and even beautiful. For Peppermint Butler and others who delve into necromancy, Jake's peaceful death stands as a counterpoint. While Peppermint seeks to control or manipulate death, Jake simply accepts it. This acceptance is more powerful than any spell or ritual. It shows that wisdom lies not in mastery, but in surrender, not in trying to dominate mortality, but in allowing it to be what it island. Jake's journey thus provides a lesson not only for Finn, but for the entire magical world of U, that the greatest power is acceptance. In a broader sense, Jake's death also serves as a meditation on friendship and family. His bond with Finn does not end with death. It continues in memory, in influence, in the lessons he leaves behind. The fact that Finn carries on, strengthened by Jake's example, shows that relationships transcend mortality. Love is not erased by death, but extended through those who remain. Jake's calm acceptance ensures that his departure is not a rupture, but a transition, one that enriches rather than diminishes those he loved. The fact that Jake reaches the 50th Dead World also resonates with Adventure Time's larger cosmology. The highest realm is not easily attained. It represents ultimate peace, ultimate release. That Jake finds his place there suggests that such peace is possible for anyone, not through power or conquest, but through love, humour, and trust. His journey becomes a promise that the afterlife is not closed off, that transcendence is possible, that peace awaits. For viewers, Jake's journey, one of the most poignant in the series. It takes a character defined by lightheartedness and shows that even in death, that lightheartedness is a source of wisdom. It reassures us that mortality, while inevitable, need not be terrifying. If Jake can accept it, laugh through it, and find peace within it, perhaps we can too. His story transforms death from an ending into a continuation, from a loss into a homecoming. In the end, Jake's journey through death is not just his story, but a reflection of Adventure Time's entire philosophy of mortality. Death is part of the cycle, not separate from it. Acceptance is stronger than resistance. Peace is possible, not through force, but through trust. And love continues, even after the body is gone. Jake the dog, always the relaxed companion, becomes in death the guide we all need. Someone who shows us that mortality is not to be feared, but embraced, not as darkness, but as light. For most of Adventure Time, Finn the human is defined by his boundless energy, his fierce sense of justice, and his belief in the power of heroism. As the last known human boy in U, his identity is tied to living, growing, and confronting the dangers of a post-apocalyptic world. But woven throughout his adventures is a quieter, more haunting thread. Finn's repeated encounters with death, from visiting the land of the dead, to speaking with spirits, to seeing his loved ones pass on. Finn grows up not only as a warrior, but as someone forced to grapple with mortality. His relationship with death is central to his coming-of-age journey, shaping his philosophy and preparing him to face life with maturity and empathy. Unlike Jake, who approaches death with natural calm, Finn wrestles with it. His encounters are rarely serene. They challenge him, unsettle him, and force him to think beyond the simplicity of fighting monsters or saving kingdoms. For Finn, death is not just an enemy to be overcome. It is a mystery that cannot be solved with a sword. This makes his journey through mortality one of the most layered and profound aspects of his character. One of Finn's earliest brushes with death is his realization that souls are real, that the departed linger as ghosts or travel to dead worlds. This knowledge shatters the simplicity of his childhood worldview. The world is not just about the living, but also about the echoes of the dead. For a boy who thrives on adventure, this is a heavy truth. It means that his actions have consequences beyond life, that the stories of those gone are not erased, but continue in unseen ways. It also means that heroism is more than saving lives. It is respecting the dead, helping them find peace, and carrying their memory forward. Finn's entry into the land of the dead marks a turning point in how he understands mortality. Here, he meets death face to face, an experience that forever changes his perspective. Death is not a faceless terror, but a being who speaks, reasons, and bargains. For Finn, this encounter is both terrifying and enlightening. It strips away the idea of death as pure horror and replaces it with something more complicated, a cosmic order that is at once frightening, absurd, and strangely fair. Meeting death makes mortality real to him in a way that no battle ever could. These encounters also highlight Finn's compassion. Where some might treat ghosts or spirits as obstacles, Finn listens to them. He understands their grief, their longing, their need for closure. Instead of dismissing them, he treats them as people, as lives still deserving of dignity. This empathy becomes one of his defining traits as he grows older. His ability to connect with the dead mirrors, his ability to connect with the living, through understanding, kindness, and respect. At times, Finn's interactions with the dead force him to confront his own fears of loneliness. As the only human boy in U for most of his life, Finn already feels a sense of separation. The existence of the dead worlds deepens that feeling. He wonders what place he will have after death, where his soul will go, and whether he will be reunited with those he loves. These questions are not answered directly, but the very act of asking them shows his growth. Finn moves from being a child who acts without thinking to a young man who contemplates the mysteries of existence. One of the most significant moments in Finn's relationship with death comes when Jake, his brother and closest companion, passes on. For Finn, Jake's death is not only a personal loss, but a test of everything he has learned about mortality. Losing Jake could have broken him, could have left him bitter or despairing. Instead, Finn finds strength in Jake's acceptance. Jake's calm passage into the 50th dead world teaches Finn that death is not to be feared, but embraced. This lesson does not erase Finn's grief, but it transforms it. He learns to carry, love forward, to honour Jake's legacy, and to continue living with courage. Finn's grief over Jake also reveals the depth of his resilience. Many heroes in stories collapse under the weight of loss. Finn, however, uses it as fuel for growth. He does not deny his sadness, but he integrates it into his journey. In this way, death becomes part of his coming of age. Just as he learns to face monsters and villains, he also learns to face the inevitability of mortality. The boy who once swung his sword without hesitation becomes a young man who understands that some battles cannot be fought with steel. Finn's encounters with the dead also tie him to the history of U. Through spirits, he learns about events long past, about wars, betrayals, and legacies that continue to shape the present. These interactions make him not only a hero of his own time, but a bridge between generations. He carries forward the lessons of the dead, ensuring that their stories are not forgotten. In this sense, Finn becomes not just a warrior, but a keeper of memory, someone who honours the voices of those who came before. What is striking about Finn's relationship with death is how it blends sorrow with hope. He experiences loss, he faces ghosts, he meets death himself, yet he never collapses into nihilism. Instead, he holds on to the belief that life is meaningful precisely because it ends. His encounters with mortality deepen his appreciation for the present, for friendships, for love. They teach him that time is precious, that every adventure matters because it will not last forever. This philosophy elevates him from a boy seeking fun to a hero seeking meaning. Finn's interactions with death also highlight his courage. Unlike many who would flee from the sight of mortality, Finn approaches it directly. He confronts death, bargains with him, and even argues with him. This bravery reflects not only his warrior spirit, but his humanity. Death is the one foe no hero can conquer, yet Finn does not flinch. Instead, he seeks to understand, to find dignity in the face of the inevitable. This courage is perhaps his greatest triumph, not the monsters he defeats, but the acceptance he achieves. The contrast between Finn and Jake in their approach to death is also telling. Jake drifts into mortality with ease, while Finn struggles, questions, and wrestles with it. Yet, together, they represent two sides of the same truth. Jake shows the peace of acceptance. Finn shows the courage of confrontation. Both are valid, both are necessary, and both reflect the diversity of human responses to death. Through them, Adventure Time honours the many ways people grapple with mortality. Finn's relationship with death also ties into his broader journey toward maturity. In the beginning, he is a child who believes that problems can be solved through action. By the end, he understands that some truths cannot be solved, only accepted. His encounters with mortality teach him patience, humility, and wisdom. They strip away the illusion of control and replace it with the deeper strength of acceptance. In this way, death is not only an end for others, but a teacher for Finn himself. Thematically, Finn's story shows that death is not a villain, but a reality. His growth lies in learning to see it not as something to fight against, but as something to live with. This perspective allows him to live more fully, to cherish each adventure, and to love without fear of loss. It also prepares him to face the future with resilience, knowing that mortality will always be part of the journey. For viewers, Finn's encounters with death are some of the most resonant moments in the series. They reflect our own struggles with mortality, our own questions about what lies beyond, and our own grief over losing loved ones. Through Finn, we see that these struggles are not weaknesses, but part of what makes us human. His courage, empathy, and resilience offer a model for how we too might face the inevitability of death. In the end, Finn's encounters with death shape him as much as his battles with monsters or his adventures across U. They teach him empathy, courage, and wisdom. They prepare him for loss and teach him to carry love forward. They show him that mortality is not an enemy, but a truth, one that gives life its urgency and meaning. Finn the human, the boy hero of U, becomes not only a warrior, but a philosopher, someone who understands that the greatest adventure is not just living, but facing the end of life with courage and love. Among the many colourful inhabitants of U, few are as deceptive in appearance as Peppermint Butler. At first glance, he seems like a harmless candy servant, polite, cheerful, and endlessly loyal to Princess Bubblegum. His round peppermint face and soft voice hardly suggest menace. But beneath the sugary surface lies one of the most mysterious and unsettling figures in Adventure Time. Peppermint Butler is a master of necromancy, a practitioner of dark arts, and one of the few characters who actively seeks knowledge from the realm of the dead. His story reveals a different side of mortality in U, not peaceful acceptance like Jake's, nor heroic confrontation like Finn's, but a restless pursuit of power, knowledge, and forbidden connection with the afterlife. Necromancy in U is not presented as purely evil, nor is it dismissed as simple trickery. It is a serious discipline, one that commands respect and fear. Peppermint Butler is not a dabbler, but an adept, skilled enough to summon spirits, converse with death himself, and command forces that most others would never dare touch. This makes him a rare figure in U's mythology, someone who does not just experience death passively, but actively manipulates its boundaries. From the start, Peppermint Butler's obsession with dark magic is played with unsettling humour. His bright, innocent appearance makes his interest in the occult feel both absurd and menacing. Yet the more we learn, the clearer it becomes that his knowledge of necromancy is not a joke. He is deeply embedded in the underworld of U's magic, familiar with demons, curses, and rituals. He knows how to summon death, how to speak with spirits, and how to bend the veil between life and afterlife to his will. What makes Peppermint Butler fascinating is his motivation. Unlike Jake, who seeks peace, or Finn, who seeks understanding, Peppermint Butler seeks control. His necromancy is not driven by curiosity alone, but by ambition. He wants access to secrets others cannot reach, and he is willing to consort with dark forces to achieve it. This hunger for power is both admirable and dangerous. On one hand, it gives him the ability to defend the Candy Kingdom in ways no one else could. On the other, it constantly threatens to consume him. His dealings with death himself reveal the complexity of his role. Unlike Finn or Jake, who meet death reluctantly, Peppermint Butler summons him deliberately. He treats death not with fear, but with familiarity, as though mortality were simply another force to be bargained with. This dynamic reflects Peppermint Butler's philosophy. Death is not an end, but a resource, something to be studied, controlled, and used. It also reflects the show's willingness to complicate its morality. Death is not purely sacred, nor is necromancy purely evil. In U, everything is subject to relationship, negotiation, and exchange. Peppermint Butler's necromancy also highlights the porous boundary between the living and the dead. Through his rituals, he brings spirits into the living world, commands their presence, and draws power from them. This reinforces the idea that the afterlife in Adventure Time is accessible, though not without danger. The dead can be called back, their voices heard, their energy harnessed. But each act of necromancy carries risk, both for the summoner and for the balance of the universe. Peppermint Butler knows this risk, and accepts it, showing his willingness to pay a price others would not dare. One of the most striking aspects of Peppermint Butler's character is how easily he hides this darkness. To most of the Candy Kingdom, he is simply a servant, loyal and obedient. His necromantic pursuits take place in secret, hidden from the innocent eyes of those around him. This duality makes him one of the most enigmatic figures in Ooh. On the surface, he is candy, sweet and harmless. Beneath, he is a bridge to the underworld, someone who traffics in death itself. This duality mirrors Adventure Time's treatment of mortality. Death is always close, always woven into life, even when hidden beneath the surface. Peppermint Butler's story also reveals the cost of necromancy. His obsession with the dark arts eventually leaves him corrupted, his body and soul twisted by the forces he sought to control. This corruption shows that death cannot be mastered without consequence. The afterlife resists being treated as mere resource. Those who try to command it risk losing themselves. Peppermint Butler embodies this warning. His pursuit of necromancy is both his strength and his downfall, a source of power and a path to ruin. At the same time, Peppermint Butler is not portrayed as purely villainous. His loyalty to Princess Bubblegum is unwavering, and much of his dark knowledge is used in service of her and the Candy Kingdom. This complicates our understanding of him. He is not seeking destruction like the Lich, nor is he selfishly consumed by ambition alone. He is loyal, even affectionate, and his necromancy is part of how he protects his people. This duality, loyalty and darkness, sweetness and corruption makes him one of the richest explorations of morality in the series. His necromancy also contributes to the larger cosmology of Ooh. Through Peppermint Butler, we see that the veil between life and death is not absolute. It can be crossed, bent, and manipulated by those with the right knowledge. This adds to the sense that Ooh is alive with mystery, that the afterlife is not distant but intertwined with daily life. Necromancy, unsettling though it may be, is part of the natural order. Just as ghosts linger and death can be bargained with, so too can the dead be summoned by those bold enough to try. In a thematic sense, Peppermint Butler represents humanity's eternal temptation to master death. Across cultures, people have sought ways to cheat mortality, summon spirits, and command the forces of the afterlife. Peppermint Butler embodies this temptation in Ooh. He shows us the allure of necromancy, the promise of knowledge, power, and control. But he also shows us the danger, the risk of corruption, isolation, and self-destruction. Through him, Adventure Time reflects the timeless human struggle to accept mortality rather than dominate it. Peppermint Butler's ultimate fate underscores this lesson. His corruption and eventual downfall reveal that necromancy cannot offer true mastery. Death is larger than any sorcerer, larger than any spell. Those who try to control it are inevitably consumed. This does not erase the value of his knowledge, but it shows its limits. Peppermint Butler is a reminder that mortality cannot be conquered. It can only be respected, feared, or, like Jake, accepted. Yet his story also highlights the ambiguity of morality in Ooh. Peppermint Butler is not punished for his necromancy in a simple sense. He is not cast as a villain to be destroyed. Instead, he is portrayed as tragic, complicated, and even sympathetic. His loyalty, his intelligence, and his unique role in the Candy Kingdom prevent us from dismissing him as evil. Adventure Time refuses to give easy answers. Necromancy is both dangerous and useful, both admirable and frightening. Peppermint Butler embodies this paradox, standing as both a hero and a warning. In the larger narrative of death and the afterlife, Peppermint Butler's role is essential. He shows us that mortality is not only something to face, but something people will always try to manipulate. His necromancy expands our understanding of the dead worlds, showing that they are not untouchable, but accessible to those with the right knowledge. At the same time, his corruption reveals the cost of that access. He is the shadow side of Jake's acceptance and Finn's empathy, the one who cannot let death be what it is, who must try to master it, and who pays the price for that hubris. For viewers, Peppermint Butler is unsettling precisely because he is familiar. He reflects the part of us that fears death so much that we try to control it, the part that longs for forbidden knowledge, the part that hides darkness beneath a smiling surface. His story is both fascinating and cautionary. It tells us that the pursuit of control over death may yield power, but it will never yield peace. In the end, Peppermint Butler and his necromancy remind us that the afterlife in Adventure Time is not a single truth, but a spectrum of possibilities. Some accept it, some fear it, some embrace it with joy, and some try to control it. Peppermint Butler falls into the last category, and his story shows us both the allure and the danger of that choice. His candy shell hides a darkness that is deeply human, the refusal to let go, the hunger to master what cannot be mastered. Through him, we see that death is not only a mystery, but a temptation, and that sometimes the greatest wisdom is not in seeking to control it, but in learning, like Jake, to accept it. Among all the mysteries of the afterlife in Adventure Time, none is more profound than the 50th Dead World. While most dead worlds remain shrouded in shadows, strange rules, or suffering, the 50th shines like a beacon of ultimate rest. It is the highest realm in the hierarchy of the afterlife, a place of release, peace, and transcendence. Its golden imagery and serene aura set it apart from all other depictions of death in the series. More than any other realm, the 50th Dead World provides insight into Adventure Time's philosophy of what it means to move on, what it means to let go, and what it means to find paradise. When we are first introduced to the concept of the Dead Worlds, the sheer number, 50 layers, suggests complexity. Mortality in U is not a single destination, but a spectrum of possibilities. Some souls wander through lower realms, bound by unrest or confusion. Others ascend higher, drawn toward harmony. The 50th is presented as the culmination of this ascent, the place where all struggle ceases. Its golden fields and tranquil landscapes stand in stark contrast to the darker, heavier dead worlds. This imagery signals to viewers that here, finally, is peace without condition. Jake's arrival in the 50th Dead World is the clearest picture we have of this paradise. His journey through death is serene because of his acceptance. Unlike souls who resist or linger, Jake embraces mortality with trust, and this allows him to rise to the highest realm. When he steps into the 50th Dead World, the tone is one of fulfillment. His presence there feels like a natural continuation of who he has always been, calm, trusting, and in tune with the universe. In Jake, we see the 50th Dead World not as a prize won through conquest, but as a homecoming for the soul at peace. The 50th Dead World is not filled with drama or cosmic battles. It is defined by stillness. Golden light fills the space, and souls within it are at rest. This depiction avoids the trappings of many afterlife myths, which often imagine paradise as a place of endless pleasure or reward. Instead, Adventure Time presents paradise as release. It is not about indulgence, but about freedom from struggle. The 50th dead world is not heaven in the traditional sense. It is transcendence. It represents the soul finally reaching a state beyond fear, beyond pain, beyond the chaos of life and the lower dead worlds. What makes this vision powerful is its simplicity. The 50th dead world is not crowded with gods or filled with spectacle. Its beauty lies in quietness. For a show that often revels in chaos, absurdity, and vibrant noise, the choice to depict paradise as silence and golden calm is meaningful. It suggests that the ultimate reward of existence is not more action, but peace. Life is noisy and difficult. Death, at its highest level, offers serenity. Thematically, the 50th dead world also embodies the idea of release from attachment. In life, characters in U are bound by relationships, desires, struggles, and fears. Even after death, ghosts and souls often remain tied to unfinished business. The 50th dead world is the realm where those ties finally dissolve. It does not erase memory or love, but it releases the soul from clinging. To enter the 50th is to let go completely, to accept change in its fullest form. Jake's easygoing nature allows him to embody this release, showing that paradise is not a prize for effort, but the natural destination of acceptance. The 50th dead world also contrasts sharply with the lower dead worlds. Where the lower realms reflect unrest, fear, or confusion, the 50th represents clarity. This contrast highlights the show's vision of death as a journey. Not every soul reaches peace immediately. Some remain in turmoil, some wander, some resist. But the possibility of the 50th exists as a reminder that peace is attainable. The dead worlds are not prisons, but pathways. For those who can release, who can trust, who can embrace change, the 50th awaits. Philosophically, this depiction resonates with many human traditions of the afterlife. In some, paradise is not about physical pleasure, but about union with the divine, freedom from suffering, or ultimate enlightenment. The 50th dead world carries echoes of these ideas. It is not a place where desires are fulfilled, but where desires no longer bind. It is not about having more, but about needing nothing. In this way, Adventure Time places its paradise not in external reward, but in inner transformation. Jake's presence in the 50th dead world is also important for Finn. For Finn, losing Jake is devastating, but knowing that his brother has found peace in the highest realm provides comfort. It teaches Finn that death is not only loss, but continuation. Jake's calm acceptance models for Finn how to face mortality with courage. The 50th dead world thus becomes not only Jake's paradise, but Finn's lesson. That death can be kind, that love persists even beyond the grave, and that peace is possible for those willing to let go. The 50th dead world also serves as a counterpoint to the Lich's philosophy. The Lich represents annihilation, the desire to end all life, to erase existence itself. The 50th represents the opposite, continuation through peace. Where the Lich sees death as destruction, the 50th shows death as transformation. This contrast reinforces one of Adventure Time's deepest themes, that death itself is not to be feared. It is erasure, oblivion, and malice, the forces embodied by the Lich that are the true horrors. Death, in its highest form, is not annihilation but transcendence. The presence of the 50th dead world also complicates Adventure Time's cosmology. If paradise exists, why do so many souls remain in lower realms? Why do ghosts linger? Why do some suffer? Why do some resist? The implication is that peace is not automatic. It must be accepted. The soul must be ready. paradise is available, but not forced. This suggests a deeply respectful philosophy. Even in death, souls retain choice, identity, and agency. They are not dragged into peace, but invited into it. Jake's acceptance shows what is possible, but not every soul makes the same choice. This raises profound questions about justice and morality. The 50th Dead World is not portrayed as a reward for virtue in a simple sense. Jake does not arrive there because he was perfect or flawless. He arrives because of his openness, his lack of resistance, his trust in the universe. This suggests that paradise is less about morality and more about state of mind. It is not earned through deeds, but through acceptance. This is a striking departure from many traditional views of the afterlife, which tie paradise to judgment. In U, paradise is about letting go. The golden light of the 50th Dead World also symbolizes completion. Throughout Adventure Time, gold often represents transformation, culmination, or transcendence. The 50th embodies this symbolism fully. It is the final stage, the golden chapter at the end of the story. For Jake, stepping into this light is not an erasure of who he is, but the fulfillment of it. He becomes part of the cosmic order, at rest within the harmony of the universe. For viewers, the 50th Dead World provides both comfort and challenge. It comforts by showing that peace is possible, that death can be serene and beautiful. But it also challenges by reminding us that peace requires acceptance, something not always easy for the living or the dead. The lesson is clear. To find paradise, one must let go. The soul must release its grip on the struggles and desires of life, must trust that existence continues in harmony. This is easier said than done, but Jake shows that it can be done. In the broader mythology of U, the 50th Dead World serves as a kind of anchor. It is the assurance that the journey of death has meaning, that the chaos of the lower realms is not the final word. It reminds us that beyond all struggle lies calm, beyond all noise lies silence, beyond all endings lies peace. Even though most of the dead worlds remain mysterious, the 50th gives shape to the ultimate destination. It tells us that mortality is not only an end, but a promise, that at the farthest point, beyond all fear, there is light. In the end, the 50th Dead World as paradise embodies Adventure Time's most hopeful vision of death. It is not frightening, not punitive, not empty. It is serene, golden, and kind. Through Jake's journey, we glimpse this truth, and we are reminded that mortality, for all its pain, is not the enemy. The true horror is annihilation, but death, real death, accepted death, is transformation into peace. For Jake, the 50th Dead World is the perfect conclusion. For Finn, it is a source of strength. For viewers, it is a lesson in acceptance. In U's grand tapestry of life, death, and beyond, the 50th Dead World shines brightest, reminding us that at the end of all things, peace awaits. When Adventure Time explores the afterlife, it does not stop at cosmic hierarchies or skeletal rulers. It also gives us something deeply personal, ghosts who linger because of love, memory, and the ties they cannot sever. These spirits are not abstract symbols of mortality, but characters with feelings, regrets, and attachments that echo long after their deaths. They remind us that while death changes form, it does not erase connection. In U, love is strong enough to pull souls back, memory is powerful enough to anchor them, and bonds are deep enough to transcend mortality itself. Ghosts of love and memory are some of the most poignant figures in the series. Unlike Jake's serene acceptance of death or Peppermint Butler's attempts to control it, these ghosts embody longing. They remain because they care, because they still yearn for something left unfinished. or because they cannot let go of those they loved. Their presence teaches us that death is not simply about where the soul goes, but about what the soul carries. If love or grief is strong enough, it does not end with the grave. It lingers, shaping both the living and the dead. One of the clearest examples is Marceline's deep connection with her mother's memory. Though her mother does not appear as a traditional ghost, her presence is felt through Marceline's songs and recollections. Marceline is haunted not by malevolent spirits, but by the absence of her mother, by the memory of a relationship cut short. In this way, the idea of a ghost expands. It is not only a spirit that walks, but also the memories that refuse to leave us. Marceline's music often takes the form of conversations with the dead, dialogues with the past, attempts to keep bonds alive through song. This shows how love itself can become a ghost, lingering in memory long after the person is gone. Other ghosts in U manifest more traditionally, drifting through haunted houses or lingering in the wilderness. Many of them are tied to specific loves or relationships. Some remain to protect their families, others to guard treasured possessions, and others simply because they cannot bear to leave the places they once called home. These hauntings are not random, they are acts of love, however distorted. The ghosts of U remind us that what we love most in life often determines how we linger in death. Finn's encounters with such spirits highlight his compassion. He listens to their stories, respects their attachments, and often helps them find closure. By doing so, he shows that love is not limited to the living. It continues across the boundary of death, requiring attention and respect. Finn's ability to empathize with the dead reflects his growing maturity. He understands that ghosts of love and memory are not enemies to be fought, but echoes of relationships that deserve care. Jake's perspective on these spirits is lighter. He accepts their presence as part of the natural order, acknowledging that love is simply too strong to be erased by death. His relaxed approach provides balance to Finn's empathy, showing that ghosts need not be feared. They are reminders, companions, and at times, even friends. Jake's attitude reinforces the theme that mortality is not a wall but a veil, thin enough for love to pass through. In some cases, ghosts of love take the form of reunions. Spirits appear to loved ones in dreams, visions, or fleeting encounters, offering comfort or guidance. These moments reveal Adventure Time's most tender vision of the afterlife, that bonds are never truly broken. Even when death has intervened, love finds a way to reach across the divide. These encounters are not treated as horror, but as gifts. Moments where the living are reminded that they are not alone. At times, however, love in death can become a burden. Some spirits cling so tightly to memory that they cannot move on. They become restless, sorrowful, or even hostile, lashing out because they cannot accept separation. These tragic ghosts remind us that love, while powerful, can also bind too tightly. In life, relationships require balance. In death, so too does love. Without the ability to let go, the soul risks becoming trapped. This is not condemnation, but compassion. Adventure Time shows us that even in death, love is complicated, capable of both comfort and pain. The existence of these ghosts also highlights the role of memory in U. Death does not erase stories. Instead, memory animates them, keeping the dead alive in both literal and figurative ways. Ghosts are embodiments of memory, living testaments to the past that refuse to vanish. They remind the living that to remember someone is to keep them present even after their body is gone. In this sense, ghosts are less about fear of the dead and more about the persistence of memory. This theme resonates, especially in the relationship between Marceline and Simon Petrikov. Though Simon lives, his transformation into the Ice King makes him ghost-like in Marceline's life. She remembers him as the kind man who cared for her in her childhood, yet he lingers in distorted form. Simon becomes a living ghost of her memory, proof that ghosts are not always literal spirits, but also the shadows of those we once knew. Marceline's love for Simon keeps his memory alive, even when his identity has been buried. In their story, love becomes the force that bridges the gap between who someone was and who they have become. The ghosts of Ool also reveal that memory is a communal act. Spirits linger not only for their own reasons, but because the living remember them. In many cultures, the dead are said to remain as long as they are remembered, and Adventure Time captures this idea beautifully. Ghosts are sustained by memory, by love, by the stories the living tell. This makes death less about vanishing and more about transformation. The dead are not gone. They live on in memory, sometimes even taking form as spirits to show that remembrance has power. In this way, Adventure Time suggests that the afterlife is as much about the living as it is about the dead. Ghosts appear not only because of their own attachments, but because the living are not ready to let go. The boundary between life and death is mutual. The dead linger because of love, and the living feel their presence because of memory. This reciprocity shows that mortality is not a solitary experience, but a shared one, where both sides influence each other. The role of ghosts, of love and memory also deepens Adventure Time's broader philosophy. The show consistently tells us that connection is the most important thing in life. Whether through friendship, family, or romance, bonds give meaning to existence. It follows, then, that those bonds should persist beyond death. Ghosts embody this truth. They are proof that love cannot be undone by mortality, that memory is strong enough to defy the grave. Even when the body is gone, the connection remains. Yet the show does not romanticize this entirely. Ghosts can be comforting, but they can also be painful reminders of loss. Love in death can be both gift and wound. Adventure Time refuses to simplify this tension. Instead, it acknowledges that grief is complex. To be haunted by love is to be comforted and hurt at the same time. This honesty makes its portrayal of ghosts deeply human. The existence of ghosts of love and memory also raises a question about the dead worlds. If paradise exists in the 50th dead world, why do some souls linger as ghosts instead of ascending? The answer seems to lie in attachment. Some are not ready to move on because their love ties them too strongly to the living world. For them, paradise must wait. The 50th is not denied, but delayed, until the soul can release its hold. This idea reinforces the show's vision of agency in death. The soul retains choice, even if that choice is to linger out of love. For Finn, encountering these spirits becomes a lesson in grief. He learns that the dead do not vanish, but remain present in memory. His interactions with ghosts teach him how to honor love without clinging to it, how to carry relationships forward without being trapped by them. These lessons shape his maturity, showing him that loss is not the end of connection, but the beginning of remembrance. In the end, the ghosts of love and memory remind us that mortality is not about erasure. It is about transformation, about continuing bonds in new forms. Love lingers, memory endures, and connection transcends the boundary of life and death. In Oo, ghosts are not just spooky apparitions, but embodiments of the most powerful truth the series has to offer, that love never dies. In the sprawling mythology of Adventure Time, two forces stand as the most direct embodiments of mortality. Death, the skeletal custodian of the underworld, and the Lich, the embodiment of entropy and annihilation. At first glance, they seem to occupy the same territory. Both are associated with endings, both dwell in the shadow of life, and both inspire fear. But the deeper we look, the clearer it becomes that death and the lich are not the same at all. They are not allies, nor even reflections of each other. They represent two radically different truths about what it means for life to end. Death is order. The lich is chaos. Death oversees the passage of souls, ensuring that life continues in new forms, that mortality is woven into the cosmic cycle. The lich, by contrast, seeks only destruction, the complete erasure of existence, the unravelling of that cycle. In death, we see structure, inevitability, and even fairness. In the lich, we see malice, horror, and absolute void. Their opposition defines Adventure Time's philosophy of mortality, showing us that death itself is not evil, but that erasure, the desire to end all things, is the true darkness. The lich is pure annihilation. He does not kill for purpose or out of necessity. He kills because it is his nature to extinguish life wherever he finds it. He is a force of entropy, a cosmic sickness. His words drip with apocalyptic certainty. All things must end, all life must be consumed. Unlike death, who rules with indifference but also with structure, the lich has no interest in balance. He does not preserve, does not manage, does not allow continuation. For him, death is not passage, but obliteration. Death, by contrast, is almost bureaucratic. He listens, bargains, and enforces rules. He does not desire destruction, but simply ensures that souls reach their proper place. This makes him oddly approachable. Characters can meet him, argue with him, and even negotiate with him. He may be dry and cynical, but he is not malicious. His role is necessary, and his existence ensures that mortality in Oo is meaningful. Souls do not vanish into nothingness. They are guided into the dead worlds. Death is not a monster, but a custodian. The difference between death and the lich becomes most obvious in how characters react to them. When Finn and Jake encounter death, they fear him, but they also talk to him. There is room for respect, even humour. Death is frightening because he represents inevitability, but he is not beyond comprehension. The lich, however, inspires only dread. He is not someone to converse with, but someone to resist. His very presence corrupts, twisting everything around him into ruin. Where death has boundaries and rules, the lich has none. He is endless hunger, a void that cannot be reasoned with. This contrast also reveals why the lich is Oo's true villain. Death is frightening, but he is part of the universe's order. The lich is terrifying because he is opposed to order itself. He is not death, but anti-life, not mortality, but erasure. In mythological terms, death represents the boundary all must pass, while the lich represents the destruction of the boundary itself. Death says, "You will pass into what comes next." The lich says, "There will be nothing next, nothing will remain." These two truths could not be more different. Jake's death and his passage into the 50th dead world emphasize this distinction. Jake accepts mortality, and in doing so, finds peace. If the lich had his way, Jake's soul and all souls would not ascend anywhere. There would be no dead worlds, no golden paradise, no ghosts lingering from love. There would be only nothingness. The lich's philosophy denies continuity, while death's existence affirms it. Adventure Time insists that while mortality is inevitable, it is not empty. It contains meaning, transition, and even transcendence. The Lich seeks to strip all of that away. The Lich's encounters with the dead worlds further highlight this opposition. When he tries to invade or manipulate the realms of death, he does so as a corrupter. He does not respect their structure, but seeks to use them as stepping stones toward obliteration. Death, by contrast, resists corruption. His authority ensures that the dead worlds remain part of the cosmic balance. Where the Lich tries to twist the afterlife into a weapon, death preserves it as a place of continuation. This tension reveals that mortality itself must be protected, not from life, but from forces that would erase it entirely. Philosophically, death and the Lich also embody two different ways humans view endings. Death reflects acceptance, the knowledge that all things must pass, but that passing is part of the cycle. The Lich reflects fear, the terror of annihilation, the belief that endings mean nothingness. Adventure Time presents both, but ultimately rejects the Lich's view. By showing us ghosts, dead worlds, and the 50th realm of peace, the show affirms that mortality does not erase meaning. It transforms it. The Lich's philosophy of annihilation is the lie, the horror, the thing to resist. Finn's relationship with these two forces demonstrates the lesson. His encounters with death teach him empathy, courage, and acceptance. He learns that mortality is not an enemy to fight, but a truth to respect. His battles with the Lich, however, are battles for existence itself. Against the Lich, Finn fights not for survival alone, but for the continuation of life, memory, and meaning. Death teaches him to accept loss. The Lich teaches him to resist erasure. Together, they prepare him for maturity, for a worldview that balances acceptance with resistance. The Lich's philosophy also provides a foil for Jake's acceptance. Jake trusts the universe, believes in the continuation of life, and ascends peacefully to paradise. The Lich would deny him that entirely. This makes Jake's journey all the more profound. His passage to the 50th Dead World is a direct rejection of the Lich's creed. It shows that the Lich is not the truth of death, but its distortion. Where the Lich says, "Nothing matters," Jake's golden afterlife says, "Everything matters," and continues in new forms. Even Peppermint Butler's necromancy can be reinterpreted in light of this opposition. His attempts to control death are dangerous, but they still operate within the belief that death exists, that souls persist, that the afterlife is real. The Lich's philosophy denies even that. He seeks to erase the very fabric Peppermint Butler tries to manipulate. This makes the Lich uniquely horrifying, because he does not merely oppose life, he opposes death as well, seeking to consume both into a void where nothing can remain. Thematically, the tension between death and the Lich reflects Adventure Time's broader worldview. The show embraces ambiguity, absurdity, and mystery, but it also affirms certain truths. One of these is that existence matters. Life, love, and even mortality are meaningful because they are part of a continuum. The Lich stands outside this continuum, a force of nihilism. Death, by contrast, exists within it, ensuring that the story continues even after bodies fall. This is why death is not evil, and why the Lich is irredeemable. One preserves, the other destroys. The visual and tonal differences between the two characters reinforce this truth. Death's realm is quiet, bureaucratic, almost mundane. It reflects structure. The Lich's presence is corrosive, unnatural, dripping with menace. It reflects void. When characters encounter death, they feel dread, but also curiosity. When they encounter the Lich, they feel only despair. This tonal difference underscores the series' message. Death is not the same as destruction. Mortality has meaning. annihilation does not. For viewers, the contrast between death and the Lich is one of the most profound lessons of Adventure Time. It teaches us to separate our fear of endings from our fear of erasure. Death is inevitable, but it is not void. It leads to continuation, ghosts, memories, dead worlds, and paradise. The Lich represents the true fear, nothingness, the stripping away of all meaning. By confronting both, Adventure Time shows us that while we must accept mortality, we must also resist annihilation. Acceptance and resistance are both necessary, depending on the enemy we face. In the end, death versus the Lich is not simply a battle of characters, but a battle of philosophies. Death embodies structure, fairness, and continuity. The Lich embodies corruption, destruction, and void. Their opposition defines the stakes of Adventure Time's mythology. Without death, the afterlife would have no order. Without resistance to the Lich, existence itself would be consumed. Together, they force us to see that mortality is not the enemy, but Annihilation Island. For Finn, for Jake, and for the audience, this lesson is invaluable. To live fully, we must accept death. To preserve meaning, we must resist annihilation. Death is part of the story. The Lich is its end. And as Adventure Time reminds us again and again, endings matter, but only when they lead to something more. If the dead worlds reveal the structure of mortality in Oo, and ghosts show how love and memory persist, reincarnation speaks to something even deeper. The idea that life itself never truly ends, but continually transforms. In Adventure Time, souls do not simply vanish. They may linger as spirits, ascend into paradise, or in some cases, return in new forms. Reincarnation and renewal are woven into the very fabric of Uwu's cosmology, suggesting that death is not finality, but a stage in an ongoing cycle of becoming. The clearest example comes from Finn, the human. Though he lives most of his story in the body we know, hints throughout the series suggest that his soul has lived many lives before. He is revealed to be part of a reincarnation cycle stretching back into ancient times, his spirit taking different shapes, identities, and roles across ages. This revelation redefines Finn's heroism. He is not just a boy who happens to grow into a hero. He is part of a cosmic pattern, his soul continually reborn to play a role in Oo's story. This continuity links him not only to the present, but to the entire history of the land of Oo. This theme of reincarnation expands Adventure Time's philosophy of mortality. It shows that death is not only a transition into the dead worlds, but also a doorway back into life. Souls do not always remain beyond. Some return, carrying echoes of who they once were. This vision blurs the boundary between life and death even further, revealing that the cycle of existence in Oo is more fluid than we might expect. Finn's reincarnated nature also highlights the persistence of identity. Though his bodies and circumstances change across lifetimes, certain traits endure. His courage, his drive to protect others, his yearning for adventure, these qualities remain constant. In this way, reincarnation becomes not erasure but continuity. The soul is not a blank slate with each rebirth, but a thread woven into new fabric, carrying familiar patterns across time. For viewers, this is a powerful reminder that identity is deeper than physical form. Who we are is not bound to one life, but resonates across many. This idea also ties into Finn's relationship with mortality. Unlike Jake, who drifts into death with ease, Finn struggles to understand it. Reincarnation offers him reassurance. even when one life ends, another begins. His heroism is not wasted, nor is his story erased. Each incarnation is part of a larger narrative, each death a step toward renewal. For Finn, this makes mortality less terrifying. To die is not to vanish, but to return, to continue the adventure in a new form. Reincarnation in U also echoes the broader cycles of nature. Just as plants wither and return in spring, just as stars collapse and new ones are born, so too do souls transform. Adventure Time often draws connections between the personal and the cosmic, and reincarnation is one of the clearest examples. Mortality mirrors the seasons, the tides, the endless rhythm of destruction and creation. Life and death are not opposites, but partners in the same dance, each making the other possible. The story of Shoko, one of Finn's past lives, illustrates this truth vividly. Shoko's fate is tragic, her life cut short, yet her existence is not erased. Her soul continues, reborn eventually as Finn. Her story shows that reincarnation is not about perfection, but about persistence. Even in failure or sorrow, the soul endures, carrying lessons and experiences into the next life. This reflects Adventure Time's rejection of simple binaries of good and bad, success and failure. Instead, it embraces complexity, showing that every life contributes to the larger cycle. This perspective also challenges traditional ideas of justice in the afterlife. In many myths, souls are judged and rewarded or punished eternally. In U, reincarnation suggests that growth is ongoing. A soul is not locked into one fate, but has opportunities to learn, change, and evolve across lifetimes. This makes mortality less about judgment and more about journey. Each life is a chance, each death a transformation, each rebirth a renewal. For viewers, this is a profoundly hopeful vision. It tells us that mistakes are not final, that growth continues, that existence itself is forgiving. Reincarnation also adds depth to Finn's relationships. If he has lived many lives, then his bonds with others may stretch across incarnations. Love and friendship may not be confined to one lifetime, but recur, reappearing in new forms. This possibility deepens the poignancy of his connections. It suggests that the love he shares with Jake, with Princess Bubblegum, with Marceline, and with countless others may not end with death, but may echo in future lives. The soul carries not only traits, but bonds, weaving relationships across time. This theme is reinforced by the broader mythology of U, where cycles of destruction and renewal are constant. The Mushroom War destroys the old world, but life blossoms in strange new forms. Elemental powers rise, collapse, and reform. The universe itself reshapes again and again. Reincarnation mirrors this cosmic truth on a personal scale. Just as the world renews, so too do souls. Mortality is not a break in the story, but part of its rhythm. Jake's acceptance of death also resonates with this philosophy. Though Jake does not reincarnate in the same way Finn does, his trust in the universe reflects the same principle. He believes that existence continues, that nothing is lost, that the cycle is unbreakable. His calm ascent to the 50th Dead World is one form of continuation, while Finn's reincarnations are another. Both reveal that mortality is not an end, but part of an eternal pattern. Peppermint Butler's necromantic experiments can also be understood in this context. His attempts to control death stand in contrast to reincarnation, which occurs naturally without intervention. Peppermint Butler seeks to bend the cycle to his will, while reincarnation shows that the cycle already provides continuity. This contrast reinforces Adventure Time's lesson. The afterlife does not need to be manipulated to preserve meaning. Meaning is inherent in the cycle itself. The theme of renewal also appears in the natural imagery associated with reincarnation. Ghosts may linger, dead worlds may structure the afterlife, but reincarnation is depicted as organic. It is part of the flow of life, as natural as rivers and forests. This imagery underscores the idea that death and life are not separate domains, but one continuous field. Just as seeds fall and sprout again, so too do souls. Finn's awareness of his reincarnated nature also shapes his maturity. It helps him understand that his struggles, joys, and losses are part of a larger continuum. He is not isolated, but connected to a chain of selves that stretches backward and forward. This knowledge grounds him, giving him strength to face mortality with courage. He knows that death is not an abyss, but a doorway, that the story does not stop with him. For viewers, the theme of reincarnation offers profound comfort. It reassures us that existence is not fragile, that identity persists, that love can echo across lifetimes. It tells us that even when one life ends, another may begin, carrying forward the lessons, the love, and the essence of who we are. This vision transforms death from an end into a transformation, from a wall into a bridge. In the end, reincarnation and renewal in U embody Adventure Time's most hopeful vision of mortality. Souls are not trapped in eternal judgment, nor are they erased by annihilation. They continue transforming, evolving, returning. Death is not a void, but a cycle, part of the rhythm of existence. For Finn, this truth defines his very identity. For U, it defines the world itself. For viewers, it offers a philosophy both playful and profound, that nothing is ever truly lost, that every ending is also a beginning, and that life, in one form or another, always returns. Adventure Time's exploration of death and the afterlife does not stop at ghosts, dead worlds, or reincarnation. It also turns its gaze backward, toward the influence of ancestors and past lives. In U, identity is not confined to a single generation or a single lifetime. The living carry with them the echoes of those who came before, whether through memory, heritage, or the mysterious persistence of the soul. This theme weaves together the personal and the cosmic, showing that death does not separate us from our ancestors, but connects us to them in profound and lasting ways. The most striking example of this comes from Finn. As the last known human boy in U, Finn's sense of self is shaped not only by who he is, but by who came before him. For much of his life, Finn believes himself to be alone, without family or heritage to guide him. Yet, as the story unfolds, we discover that his soul has lived many lives, stretching back through U's long and turbulent history. His reincarnation as Shoko, a girl who lived centuries before, reveals that Finn is part of a much larger lineage of selves. Shoko's tragic fate, cut short in youth, echoes into Finn's own life, giving him a deeper connection to the history of humanity and to the persistence of identity beyond death. This revelation transforms Finn's story. He is not simply a hero who emerged from nowhere. He is the latest incarnation of a soul that has walked many times. His courage, his longing for adventure, and his sense of justice are not accidental, but part of a thread woven across lives. Through him, Adventure Time suggests that ancestors are not only biological, but spiritual. They live within us as past versions of ourselves, carrying lessons, regrets, and hopes that shape our present. Shoko's presence as Finn's past life also highlights the unfinished business of ancestors. Her story was tragic, her life marked by suffering and loss. Yet her reincarnation as Finn provides a form of renewal. Where she failed, Finn succeeds. Where she was broken, Finn finds healing. This continuity shows that past lives are not erased but transformed. They contribute to the journey of the soul, each building upon the last. Death is not a full stop but a comma, leading to new sentences in the story of the self. Beyond Finn, Adventure Time explores the theme of ancestry through other characters as well. Marceline, for instance, is defined in part by her lineage. The daughter of a human mother and a demon father, Marceline, is constantly negotiating the legacy of her ancestry. Her mother represents mortality, love, and humanity, while her father represents power, hunger, and destruction. This dual inheritance shapes Marceline's identity, making her both protector and predator, artist and warrior. In her, we see how ancestry is not only about who came before, but about the struggles we inherit from them. Marceline's relationship with her father, Hunson Abadir, also reflects the tension between love and burden in ancestry. Hunson is powerful, frightening, and often selfish, yet he is still her father. Their bond is complicated, filled with resentment and longing. For Marceline, her father is both a figure of love and a reminder of the darkness in her heritage. This complexity shows that ancestors are not idealized, but real, carrying both gifts and curses that shape the living. Her human mother, by contrast, represents the gentler side of ancestry, the love and mortality that ground Marceline's humanity. Together they illustrate that ancestry is never one thing but a mixture of legacies, some painful, some nurturing, all inescapable. Jake's family provides another example of how ancestors shape the present. His children with Lady Rainicorn embody the reconciliation of two ancestries once at war, Dog and Rainicorn. Their existence proves that ancestral conflict does not have to dictate the future. By choosing love, Jake and Lady Rainicorn create a family that transcends old divisions. Their children carry the heritage of both sides, but instead of being bound by war, they represent unity. This shows that ancestors may leave us with burdens, but we are not doomed to repeat their mistakes. Renewal is always possible, and love can reshape legacy. The idea of ancestors also appears in the way characters remember and honour those who came before them. Ghosts in Oo are not only spirits of the dead, but also reminders of ancestry. They carry the voices of past generations, demanding to be remembered. When Finn, Jake, or others encounter ghosts, they are not only meeting individuals, but also touching history. These encounters remind the living that their actions are part of a larger story, one that began long before them and will continue long after. In many ways, the dead worlds themselves can be seen as the domains of ancestors. Each realm holds the souls of those who lived before, organizing them into a cosmic lineage. To enter the dead worlds is to step into the company of ancestors, to recognize that the living are never alone, but always part of a vast community of souls. This vision expands the idea of family beyond blood, or even reincarnation. It situates each individual within a cosmic ancestry, a chain of being that stretches across worlds. Adventure Time also shows that ancestors can be both burdens and guides. Shoko's memory haunts Finn, but it also strengthens him. Marceline struggles with her father's legacy, but it also gives her resilience. Even Jake's children carry the memory of the Rainicorn Dog War, but they turn that history into a foundation for something new. In each case, ancestry is not static. It is something the living engage with, reinterpret, and transform. Death does not silence ancestors. It makes them part of the ongoing dialogue of identity. This theme resonates with the human experience of ancestry. we too inherit stories, burdens, and gifts from those who came before us. Some of these legacies inspire us, while others challenge us. Adventure Time captures this complexity by refusing to romanticize ancestry. It acknowledges that past lives and past generations can wound as well as heal. But it also insists that renewal is possible. The past may shape us, but it does not define us absolutely. We have the power to reinterpret, to heal, and to carry forward the parts of our ancestry that give us strength. The persistence of past lives also raises philosophical questions about identity. If Finn was once Shoko, is he still Shoko in some sense? Or is he someone entirely new? Adventure Time does not give us a clear answer, but it suggests that identity is layered. Finn is himself, but he is also shaped by the echoes of who he has been. This layering reflects the complexity of human identity more broadly. We are not only who we are now, but also who we have been, both in our personal past and in the legacies of our ancestors. In the cosmology of this complexity is part of the beauty of existence. Death does not erase the past, but weaves it into the present. Ancestors and past lives are not gone, but alive in memory, in lineage, and in the soul itself. They remind us that mortality is not isolation but connection, not an end but a continuation of stories that stretch beyond individual lifetimes. For Finn, Marceline, Jake, and countless others, the role of ancestors and past lives is central to their growth. It teaches them resilience, humility, and responsibility. They learn that they are not alone, that their struggles are part of a larger tapestry. They also learn that while they cannot change the past, they can transform its meaning. In this way, Adventure Time presents ancestry not as a chain that binds, but as a thread that connects. For viewers, this vision is both comforting and challenging. It comforts us by affirming that those who came before us are still with us, shaping and guiding us. It challenges us by reminding us that we carry their burdens as well as their gifts, and that we must decide how to carry them forward. Adventure Time refuses to give easy answers, but it offers a philosophy of hope, that the past is not a prison, but a foundation, and that even in death, our ancestors continue to walk with us. In the end, the role of ancestors and past lives in Adventure Time reveals the show's deepest vision of mortality. Death does not sever, it connects. The dead do not vanish. They live on in us, in our memories, in our souls, and sometimes even in our bodies through reincarnation. Past lives are not lost but transformed, and ancestors are not silent but ever present. In to live is to carry the voices of the dead, and to die is to join the chorus of ancestry that guides the living forward. In Adventure Time, death is rarely portrayed as a single, clean break. Instead, the series dwells on the liminal space, the in-between, the threshold where the living and the dead overlap. This space is not merely a passage, but a condition of existence in Characters move across it, linger within it, or are haunted by it. The result is a vision of mortality, not as a fixed border, but as a zone of transition, fluid and permeable, where identity, memory, and meaning shift in unpredictable ways. The liminal is visible in the many times characters cross into the dead worlds while still alive. Finn, Jake, and Peppermint Butler all make such journeys, revealing that the veil between life and death is not absolute. It can be walked across with the right conditions, a spell, a ritual, or even the intervention of death himself. These journeys highlight the permeability of mortality. Death is not a wall, but a doorway, and that doorway is not always locked. This liminality is also present in ghosts, who drift between life and death. They are not fully gone, yet not fully present. Their translucent bodies and lingering attachments embody the idea of being caught between realms. Some ghosts seem playful, almost alive. Others are sorrowful, unable to move forward. In both cases, they inhabit the threshold. Their presence blurs the line between memory and reality, showing that the dead do not vanish but remain in partial form. Marceline embodies this liminal condition more than any other character. As a half-demon and a vampire, she exists in a state that is neither fully alive nor fully dead. She feeds on colour rather than blood, plays music to express centuries of accumulated memory, and lives with a body that does not age in the same way as mortals. Her existence is an extended liminal state, a constant reminder that identity can span across categories. Marceline is alive, but she also carries the weight of death, loss, and timelessness. Through her, Adventure Time personifies the threshold itself, vibrant yet haunted, enduring yet fragile. Simon Petrikov, too, reflects this in-between. While he is still alive, his identity is fragmented by the crown's magic, making him a ghost of his former self. To Marceline, Simon is already gone, yet to others he remains present as the Ice King. He is both alive and dead at once, a living man, consumed by memory and transformation. This fractured existence blurs the categories of mortality, showing that death can arrive in pieces long before the body falls. The liminal space is not always tragic. Jake's journey through the dead worlds illustrates the serenity possible in transition. When he dies, he moves easily between realms, encountering thresholds without fear. He embodies the idea that liminality can be gentle, a flow rather than a rupture. For Jake, the in-between is not something to fear, but something to embrace. His calm presence in the liminal space shows that thresholds can be spaces of learning and release. For Finn, encounters with the liminal are moments of transformation. Each time he faces ghosts, crosses into the dead worlds, or confronts the memory of past lives, he steps into the threshold. These experiences teach him empathy, courage, and maturity. In the liminal, Finn discovers that identity is not fixed, that the dead still influence the living, and that mortality is not the opposite of life, but its companion. The in-between becomes his classroom, shaping his philosophy as much as his battles with villains ever did. The liminal also appears in the way Adventure Time depicts dreams and visions. Characters often encounter the dead, or echoes of the dead, in dreamlike states, where reality and imagination blur. These moments suggest that the liminal is not only a place, but also a state of consciousness. To dream of the dead is to meet them halfway, to step into a space where memory and reality overlap. This reflects the show's broader theme, that the boundary between life and death is not absolute, but porous, felt in memory, imagination, and love. Thematically, the liminal space reflects human experience of grief. When we lose someone, they are not simply gone. They linger in memory, in places, in dreams, in habits. They are not fully absent, but not fully present either. Adventure Time captures this truth through its ghosts, its journeys to the dead worlds, and its liminal characters like Marceline and Simon. Death is not an immediate severing, but a slow unfolding where the living and the dead remain intertwined. The liminal also complicates the moral dimension of death. If ghosts remain, if spirits can return, if past lives echo in the present, then mortality is not absolute. This opens questions about responsibility, closure, and justice. Can the dead forgive? Can they be wronged anew? Can they change? In Adventure Time, the answer seems to be yes. The dead are not frozen, but continue to interact, influence, and evolve within the liminal. Death, then, is not final judgment, but ongoing relationship. Peppermint Butler's necromancy exploits this in between. His rituals often summon spirits from the liminal space, drawing them into the realm of the living. By doing so, he demonstrates that the threshold can be manipulated, that the in-between is accessible to those with the right knowledge. But his corruption also shows the danger of tampering too much with liminality. The space between life and death is not meant to be mastered. It is fragile, unstable, and powerful, and those who meddle with it risk being consumed by it. The Lich, by contrast, seeks to destroy the liminal altogether. For him, the threshold is intolerable because it allows continuation. He wants not passage, but void, not transformation, but annihilation. The existence of liminality is a direct refutation of his philosophy. It proves that death does not end meaning, that the dead remain part of the story. In this sense, the liminal is not just a metaphysical space, but a moral battleground. It preserves continuity against the Lich's hunger for nothingness. Visually and tonally, the liminal in Adventure Time is often presented as dreamlike. Landscapes shimmer, voices echo, time flows differently. These details emphasize the strangeness of the in-between, making it feel uncanny but not hostile. It is unfamiliar yet recognizable, like the sensation of déjà vu or the weight of grief. The show captures the sense that stepping into the liminal is both unsettling and comforting, a reminder that we live surrounded by echoes of the dead. For viewers, the liminal space is one of the most relatable aspects of Adventure Time's philosophy of death. We all live with the presence of those who are gone. We hear their voices in memory, see them in dreams, or feel their influence in daily life. The show transforms these experiences into narrative, making ghosts, visions, and thresholds part of its world. By doing so, it validates our own experiences of mourning, reminding us that death is not silence, but a conversation that continues in subtle ways. In the end, the liminal space between life and death in U is not simply a backdrop, but a central truth of its mythology. It reveals that mortality is not a line but a field, a zone where love, memory, and identity intermingle. Characters like Marceline, Simon, Finn, and Jake all embody this threshold in different ways, showing that life and death are not opposites but partners in the same story. Adventure Time insists that the dead are not gone, the living are not untouched, and the boundary between the two is never absolute. The liminal is where grief finds meaning, where memory becomes presence, and where mortality becomes transformation. It is the whisper in the silence, the shadow in the light, the in-between that ensures that death is never the end, but always part of something more. The world of Adventure Time is filled with absurdity, humour, and vibrant chaos. But beneath all of its candy kingdoms and surreal landscapes lies a profound sense of cosmic structure. Mortality in U is not random. It is part of an order that stretches across living beings, dead worlds, and the vast forces that govern existence itself. Death is not just an individual event, but a necessary thread in the fabric of the universe. To understand mortality in Adventure Time, we must see it not only as a personal journey, but as part of the cosmic order that keeps U balanced. From the start, Adventure Time presents its universe as layered and interconnected. The living world of U is only one layer, resting atop countless dead worlds, surrounded by cosmic entities such as Prismo, the Cosmic Owl, and Golb. Each of these beings and realms plays a role in the structure of existence. Death is not isolated from this order, but integrated within it. The flow of souls into the dead worlds, the cycles of reincarnation, and the persistence of ghosts all ensure that existence is continuous, never fractured. Mortality is the mechanism that allows this cosmic flow to function. Death himself is a custodian of this order. While he may appear casual and sardonic, his role is essential. He ensures that souls move where they must, that the balance between life and death is preserved. Without death, the system would collapse, as shown when his absence causes disruption and chaos. His position in the cosmic hierarchy makes clear that mortality is not an accident, but a principle, woven into the same structure that governs time, space, and destiny. The dead worlds themselves reveal the scale of this cosmic order. 50 realms, layered one above another, each representing different states of existence after life. This multiplicity reflects the complexity of the universe. Just as U is diverse in its living forms, candy people, rainicorns, demons, humans, and more, so too is the afterlife diverse in its realms. The cosmic order does not impose uniformity. Instead, it embraces variety, ensuring that every soul has a place that reflects its essence. Mortality, then, is not erasure but placement, a sorting of existence into the grand tapestry of reality. The presence of reincarnation within this order further expands its scope. Souls do not always remain in the dead worlds. Some return to the living world in new forms, continuing their journey through new lives. This reveals that mortality is not static but dynamic, part of a cycle of renewal. Death is a hinge rather than an end, a passage through which existence flows. The cosmic order allows for continuity, ensuring that no life is wasted but carried forward in different shapes and times. The cosmic owl provides another dimension to this order. His dream visions shape destiny, linking mortality to fate. Characters who see him in dreams often confront truths about their death or transformation. The cosmic owl is not death, but he is connected to the structure of mortality, ensuring that each death aligns with the greater flow of the universe. His presence shows that mortality is not arbitrary. It is guided, placed within a cosmic script that balances freedom with destiny. Prismo, the wish-granting being who lives in the time room, also reflects this order. While his role is tied more to possibility than to death, his existence shows that mortality and cosmic order are intertwined with choice. Wishes can alter lives, shift fates, and even delay death, but they cannot erase mortality entirely. Prismo himself exists in a liminal state, a dream of a sleeping old man, reminding us that even cosmic beings are subject to cycles of existence. His death and rebirth show that even at the highest levels of reality, mortality plays a role. The presence of Golb, however, threatens this order. Golb represents chaos, entropy, and corruption. Unlike death, who maintains structure, Golb dissolves it. His power warps both the living and the dead, disrupting the continuity of existence. Where death ensures order, Golb seeks to unmake it. In this contrast, Adventure Time clarifies that mortality itself is not destructive. It is a stabilizing force, part of the system that allows existence to continue. The real threat to cosmic order is not death but chaos, the unraveling of structure and meaning. Finn and Jake's interactions with this cosmic order reveal how personal mortality connects to universal truth. Finn, through dreams, visions, and encounters with death, learns that his life is part of something larger. His reincarnation links him to generations past, while his interactions with cosmic beings show him that mortality is not a flaw, but a feature of existence. Jake, in his calm acceptance of death and his ascension to the 50th dead world, demonstrates harmony with the cosmic order. He does not resist it, but flows with it, embodying the trust that allows peace in mortality. Even Peppermint Butler, with his necromancy, shows the importance of cosmic order. His attempts to control death are dangerous because they disrupt the balance. By summoning spirits and meddling with the dead worlds, he risks destabilizing the natural flow of mortality. His eventual corruption is a lesson that trying to dominate the cosmic order leads to ruin. Mortality cannot be bent without consequence. It must be respected as part of the greater whole. The existence of ghosts also fits within this order. They linger not because the system is broken, but because memory and love are part of the universe's structure. Ghosts reflect the persistence of identity, ensuring that nothing is lost entirely. Their presence in the living world reinforces the continuity of existence, linking the past and present. Mortality allows for transformation, but memory ensures connection. Together, they preserve balance. The moral implications of this cosmic order are profound. If mortality is part of the structure of the universe, then to resist it endlessly is futile. Acceptance, not denial, brings peace. Jake's story shows this clearly. By trusting the order, he finds serenity. By contrast, characters who resist, such as those corrupted by the Lich or bound by unfinished business, remain trapped in turmoil. The cosmic order does not punish or reward, but reflects the soul's state. Harmony brings release. Resistance brings unrest. This philosophy resonates with the broader themes of Adventure Time, that life is meaningful because it ends, that endings give shape to stories, and that mortality is what makes love, memory, and growth matter. The cosmic order ensures that existence is not chaotic, but purposeful. Even in absurdity and randomness, there is structure. Even in death, there is continuity. For viewers, the vision of mortality as part of a cosmic order is both comforting and humbling. It comforts by affirming that death is not meaningless. Every soul has a place. Every death is part of a larger flow, and every existence contributes to the tapestry. It humbles by reminding us that we are small pieces of a vast structure, subject to principles beyond our control. Mortality is not a flaw to be fixed, but a truth to be embraced. In the end, Adventure Time's portrayal of mortality and cosmic order shows that death is not chaos, not annihilation, and not cruelty. It is the rhythm of the universe, the structure that makes continuity possible. The dead worlds, the cosmic owl, Prismo, and death himself all testify to this truth. Mortality is the thread that binds Oo together, ensuring that life, memory, and love flow into new forms. To live, then, is to accept that we are part of this order. To die is to return to it. And to remember those who have passed is to honour the structure that holds everything. Adventure Time teaches us that cosmic order is not about control, but about trust, not about fear, but about flow. Mortality is not the end of meaning, but the foundation of it. It is what allows the story to continue, endlessly, beautifully, forever. Throughout Adventure Time, the line between life and death is never sharp. It bends, wavers, and allows for conversation. The living speak to the dead reach out to the living, and the cycle of existence feels less like a separation and more like a dialogue. This ongoing exchange defines U's philosophy of mortality. Death is not silence, not an erasure of all meaning, but an extension of life's relationships into new forms. The living and the dead remain bound together, each shaping the other, creating a world where memory, love, and continuity thrive beyond the grave. The entire cosmology of U is built on this dialogue. 50 dead worlds stretch upward in layers, holding the souls of the departed. Yet these realms are not isolated. They touch the living world constantly. Ghosts linger in forests and homes. Dream visions connect mortals to ancestors, and even death himself can be summoned into conversation. Mortality is not a locked door, but a window, sometimes clear, sometimes foggy, but always open enough for echoes to pass through. Finn and Jake's journeys embody this truth. Again and again, they cross into the dead worlds while still alive, not as trespassers, but as participants in a larger dialogue. They meet death, bargain with him, and return to the land of the living changed. When Jake eventually dies and ascends to the 50th dead world, his serenity is not a disappearance, but a continuation of the dialogue in a new register. His peace becomes a lesson for Finn, his presence in paradise a comfort for those left behind. Through Jake, the show reminds us that love between the living and the dead is never cut off. It simply changes form. Marceline's story offers another dimension to this dialogue. She carries her mother's absence like a haunting, not as a ghost she can touch, but as a memory that refuses to fade. Her music becomes a way of conversing with the dead, turning memory into melody. At the same time, her relationship with Simon Petrikov, a man alive yet ghost-like in identity, shows how blurred the categories of living and dead can be. Simon is both present and gone, a voice she cannot fully recover, but cannot let go of either. In both cases, Marceline demonstrates that the dead continue to speak, whether through memory, music, or the fractured identities of those transformed by time. Even Peppermint Butler's necromancy reflects this dialogue, though in a darker register. His rituals summon spirits, forcing them into the living world to answer his questions or obey his commands. These interactions are unsettling, yet they also reinforce the show's vision that the dead are never fully unreachable. Necromancy may distort the dialogue, turning it into something coercive rather than natural, but it proves that the line between life and death is thin. Where others listen with reverence, Peppermint Butler intrudes with control, reminding us that the conversation between living and dead can be fragile and easily corrupted. The presence of ghosts throughout U reinforces this theme. Some linger out of love, others out of regret, but all of them remain tied to the living world. They are not severed from those they left behind, but continue to shape their loved ones' stories. Finn often meets these spirits with compassion, listening to their needs and helping them move forward. Jake treats them as part of the natural order, a reminder that love and memory do not end. Through these encounters, Adventure Time teaches us that grief is itself a form of dialogue, an ongoing relationship with those we have lost, carried in memory and heart. This dialogue also appears in the way ancestors and past lives shape the present. Finn's reincarnation, as Shoko reveals, that past lives continue to echo into new ones. Shoko's unfinished business is not erased, but resolved through Finn's heroism. Her voice, though belonging to the dead, guides Finn toward growth. Ancestry becomes conversation, across generations, with the dead shaping the living even when centuries stand between them. In this way, reincarnation is not only renewal, but communication, proof that souls speak across lifetimes. The cosmic owl further deepens this theme. His dream visions often connect mortals to the truths of their deaths or the destinies awaiting them. In dreams, the living encounter their own mortality, glimpsing the dialogue between their present life and their eventual end. These visions are unsettling but also illuminating, revealing that mortality is part of the script of existence. The cosmic owl acts as a messenger, ensuring that the dialogue between life and death is acknowledged, even if it is often cryptic. Prismo's existence adds another layer. As a being whose very life depends on the dream of an old man, Prismo exists between states. He is alive, but also the projection of a sleeping body. When he dies and is later reborn, his story highlights the fluidity between existence and non-existence. For mortals, he offers wishes that often touch on mortality, bending fate, but never erasing death entirely. His presence shows that, even at the cosmic level, the boundary between life and death is conversational, flexible, and ongoing. The greatest threat to this dialogue comes from the Lich. His philosophy of annihilation is not death but silence. Where death represents order and continuation, the Lich represents void. If he were to succeed, the dialogue between the living and the dead would end entirely. No ghosts, no reincarnations, no memories persisting in song, only nothingness. This is why the Lich is U's true villain, not because he represents mortality, but because he seeks to destroy its meaning. In contrast, every ghost, every ancestor, every vision of the cosmic owl affirms that the dead still speak. The Lich seeks to silence that conversation forever. In resisting the Lich, Finn and Jake defend not only life, but the dialogue itself. They preserve the Finn possibility of memory, of continuity, of bonds that stretch across mortality. Their victories ensure that the living and the dead remain connected, that love persists beyond endings. In this sense, the show's greatest battles are not just against monsters, but against silence, against the erasure of meaning and the severing of dialogue. Thematically, this eternal conversation transforms how we view grief. To mourn is not to lose entirely, but to continue speaking with the dead in new ways. Songs, memories, and dreams become voices of the departed. The living carry their ancestors with them, embody their lessons, and pass them on. Adventure Time portrays grief not as a void, but as presence, painful, yes, but still a connection. To live is to be in dialogue with the dead, whether through memory, spirit, or reincarnation. This vision also transforms how we see mortality itself. Death is not an end of connection, but a change in its form. Love persists, stories continue. The living respond to the voices of the dead, and the dead remain present in memory, dreams, and cosmic order. This philosophy reassures us that we are never fully alone. The dead walk with us, not as horrors, but as companions, shaping who we are and how we live. For Finn, Jake, Marceline, Peppermint Butler, and countless others, this dialogue defines their growth. Finn learns compassion by listening to spirits. Jake teaches serenity by showing that love continues in paradise. Marceline sings with ghosts of memory. Peppermint Butler warns of the dangers of forcing conversation rather than allowing it. Each of them contributes to the series' philosophy, that the line between life and death is not silence, but conversation. For viewers, this vision of U is both strange and deeply familiar. We may not see ghosts floating by our windows, but we feel the presence of those we have lost in memory, habit, and love. We may not visit the dead worlds, but we dream of the dead and carry them in our stories. Adventure Time transforms these experiences into narrative, making the dialogue literal but never trivial. It tells us that our sense of connection beyond death is not fantasy but truth, that love and memory are themselves forms of immortality. In the end, the eternal dialogue between the living and the dead defines Oo's vision of mortality. Death is not silence, it is a continuation of conversation, reshaped but never ended. Ghosts speak, ancestors echo, past lives return, and even paradise allows the living to find comfort in knowing their loved ones rest in peace. The Lich threatens to erase this, but he fails because the dialogue is stronger than void. Adventure Time closes not with silence, but with song, a reminder that the living and the dead will always share a melody. Mortality is not the end of love, but its transformation, not the end of meaning, but its expansion. In Oo and in our world, the dead remain with us. The conversation never ends.